everyone. Today we're here to highlight a multi-page Python app that implements a wide set of Dash components and visualizations together with some AI features. This app was part of the Conflict and Casualties July project that we had for the community on Charming Data, and it was built by Laura, a data enthusiast working in the semiconductor industry. Today we're going to hear from Laura about the project, about her motivation, about the code and the data set. So after we hear from her in the second part, we'll actually go into the app demo that you see in front of you right now. Hi, Laura. Thank you for joining me again. How are you?
Hi, Adam. Hello, everyone. I'm fine here. Happy to be here.
Cool. Thank you for joining. Laura, can you tell us a little bit about the data set that you use to build this Dash app?
Oh, sure. The dataset that I use was put together by the Uppsala University in Sweden, and this dataset is the most completely and probably one of the oldest collection of the data about conflicts around the world. And well, it's not just a dataset; they offer a series dataset, and they are constantly updated. Well, let me show you here that they took care of the collection of data, so they have this very interesting app, and I recommended to take a look. And they also have a download section where you can find all the data set. And I use one of these data set, and I decided, especially in this case, to focus on the 2024 data. Why I decide to focus on the most recent data, because actually the topic in general is very educative and informative, but I was very interested in focus on recent data because through the data I had the chance to gain a perspective of the world around me, and sometimes some information that are often not considered and not provided by the mainstream media. So yeah, I decided to use this data set for this reason. The data set is, as I said, very rich. This is just an example, and you can see that there are many columns, but they provide detail from all events, all attacks and violence events around the world, with information about the location when these events occur, the how many deaths, which are the parts that are
Partners.
fighting. So
Yeah.
many information. So you can do a very deep analysis of this data. For example, they also include some news, some headlines that report and explain the event. So yes, it's
Yeah.
very rich.
And that's what I liked about your Dash app, actually, Laura, because it like all this data that we see, the Excel sheets, even though it's only from 2024, it's a lot of data, a lot of columns, a lot of rows, and it's really hard to understand what you're looking at just looking at the Excel sheet. And your Dash app helps facilitate and the understanding of the data trends, how many casualties in which conflicts, who's the party involved. You even had a nice AI in there that we're going to see pretty soon. So just wanted to give you kudos and compliments on your Dash app because I was really impressed by it. Um, now, you said I know the data from the Uppsala University in Sweden is from 1989. You focused on 2024, right? Because you want to get the recent understanding of recent data from January to probably May or June of this year. What was the goal, Laura, of this project for you?
Oh, yes. Actually, there were no constraints about the implementation. Everyone that decided to take part of this project were free to implement different kind of analysis, select the data, different visualization, and so on. So, okay, first of all, I took the opportunity to challenge myself with the implementation of the full flow. Uh, for the full flow, I mean retrieving the data, so from the original data set, prepare the data, design the app, and finally deploy. Because actually, after completing the app implementation, I decided to deploy this prototype on a Roku platform. And but apart this the implementation part that was very interesting for me. I tested myself. I would like to test myself to, let me say, in let me call in my capability in terms of data storytelling. I mean, how the app design and the app feature can help the audience to really get insight from the data. So I would like to test myself to produce something that is effective, that can help the audience, also non-technical, maybe that is not that has no skill to clean the data, prepare the data, and prepare visualization to get some insights. So let's say that this is the main goal, apart obviously the implementation.
Okay. And why did you choose to do the app as a multi-page dash app?
Oh yes, I decided to go with the multi-page app because I think that this this help to split the data exploration and help the user to get the different perspective of the data. I mean, see the data at different level of aggregation and get different information. So let's say that navigating through the different page, the user can have, let's say, can start from high level picture of today conflicts worldwide, and then I would like to provide the capability to drill down and, for example, look into the events of a specific country, or and also compare the situation in two different nations. So compare what is happening here and there, and so on. And so, in general, let's say that given my goal, adopt a multi-page approach was probably the cleanest one.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm eager to see your app. I know it has a few pages. Do you mind walking us through the different pages you build?
Oh yes, yes, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me switch here. So this is the main page, and okay, the main page provide first of all the capability, the show actually all the content. So we can have the data, we can move to the world view, the country view, or for example here we can jump in another page that is dedicated to the comparison between different countries. So let me briefly anticipate that. I try to create a kind of index, a kind of KPI to compare different conflicts. To implement, let me just an overall consideration. I use, okay, this is a Dash app, pure Python, and I decide in order to simplify the style of the app, I try to use with some customization, but in general, bootstrap components. So here we have some sliding cards that provide high level numbers. So let's say some statistics about the data. So you can see the number of countries that has some issue in this period, how many civilian casualties, and so on. So let's say a high level summary of the
Yeah.
content. Yeah, then through this accordion, this component, or through this menu, we can jump in the other page. So from the top, we can have the world view. So here we have a map, and this is colored by the number of civilian deaths. We can zoom in. So these are chloropath map. And here we have high level summary data. So I split the dead civilians by geographic area. We can have a perspective from countries, from a region, but also by countries. And here I'm
This
zooming
is
in on
this
the,
is a
yeah.
total sum for all of 2024, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, yes. The overall picture, yeah. But then by through this page, we can also have a different view of the data. We can break the data in by aggregating them in weekly. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so we can move from a static map to animated map, providing the evolution of the situation across the weeks. So you can see that actually we have this kind of
Oh,
animation.
nice. Yeah.
And here below the data, we have some other plots that still provide a picture of weekly data. In this case, the breakdown by region. On here, just a trend plot. And okay, to help the user to understand the content, I also insert some small menu in order to provide, let's say, I try to implement a kind of user guide to provide some information about the content and how, let's say, the user can
Yeah,
can
like
check.
better understand how what they're looking at.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, from as I said, the approach and the organization of the API from top to bottom, and then moving from the worldwide overview, we can check from different countries. And here we have some summary cards for a selected country. We have a map showing the main events, when these events occur. And here below we have the time series, the trend, the showing across the time where the events occur. Each dot represent an event, and the size of the dot represent the level of that civilians that occur in these specific events. So we can, through this menu, we can select one country. We have all the full list of the countries. And yeah, for example, if we select this one, automatically the map zoom to the selected country, and these cards are updated. So we have the civilian casualties, the number of the total deaths in the from the overall data set for the specific country, and the number of attacks. So if I zoom in, I can see actually more in detail when these events occur. And here below, I have the same data but representing on the
By
timeline.
time. Oh,
Yes, exactly.
nice.
But actually, these are just related. For example, these points are just related to the dead civilians, and but we could have, in order to have a better idea of how often the events occur, no matter what, if they involve civilians or not. I also added the capability to overlay the events occurrence, so we can see that actually here in this country we have many attacks, and many times the civilians were involved. So let's say that it's a kind
Ah.
of provided further information on this plot.
Yeah, because
As
there's a big difference
yeah,
between um, the number of events, violent events, and the number of deaths. It could be you have like 100 violent events, but if there's only one or two deaths, it's not the same or proportional as having two events but 1,000 deaths.
exactly. So it's a kind of provided. If we go through the list and select different country, we can start to assess and
Could
create,
we
let's say,
could
an
we actually
idea
do
of, yeah.
that, Laura? Could we do that? Can we go into like Ukraine, for example? I know that's a very active and continuous recent conflict. If it's in there,
Yeah. Yeah, you can see, okay, yeah, we have many events, many
many
deaths,
events,
but the events occur almost daily. And
daily, yeah.
also, yes, exactly. And
And
actually, you can see, what, for example, you can see that we have many deaths and also many civilian casualty, but the events and the total deaths, probably there's more army involved. So we
so
can start to
this
have some
is
consideration, yeah.
interesting because like 2,000 attacks and 7,000 deaths, rounding up the numbers, meaning for every attack there's about 3 or 3.5 deaths. What if you go one last country I'm interested in seeing is Israel right now. I know that's a lot in the news. So here we
Oh,
have
a very
1,000
small
attacks.
country, a very small
It's
country.
all in Gaza. Yeah, we have 1,000 attacks and 10,000 deaths. So this the death per event or per attack is a lot higher. It's about almost 10 deaths per event, which is probably the highest right now that we've are seeing around the world.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, but then I think that through this data set you can discover the situation of many countries that actually are not, let's say, not under, yeah, less discussed, less
Like not under
discussed by
mainstream
the media.
media.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Especially the Sahel, I noticed, but also events that occur in South America and many more. So yeah, as I said, for me it was very informative working on this data set.
Yeah, in Sudan also. Sudan is not in the news a lot, and it's going through a lot of. Let's see if there's anything there. Not South Sudan. Try
Yeah,
the
sorry,
regular
sorry.
Sudan. I thought also it was South Sudan, but it's actually in Sudan.
Yeah.
You see 1,000 deaths from 100 attacks. Also, it's almost the same average of 10 deaths per attack. Wow, really bad. Okay, and what do we have with the last page?
Oh yeah, I would like just to mention one more feature. Sorry, Adam, because actually, as I mentioned at the beginning, the data set include also some information about
Oh,
some
yeah,
headlines
yeah,
about the events, and but sometimes I noticed that in this data set, the headlines. They use different languages, for example, yeah, maybe original language from the countries, or just a very synthetic information. So I took the opportunity to implement a basic AI feature. I use LangChain in order
nice.
for selected events. So the user interact with the plots, with the graph, and can select an event, and the AI can help to summarize all the news related to this event. And in addition to the text summarization, let me call in this way, I also implement the AI capability to translate accordingly, to translate in a different language accordingly with the user preferences. For
Okay.
example, here through this menu, the user can select a different language. I just define a list, but
Yeah.
actually the list could be very, very long. And for example, let's say let's select Spanish, and if the user, for example, click on one event, let's select this, then the AI retrieve from the dataset the news related to the selected events, and create the summary.
So you will
And
try to
yeah,
create the summary and
exactly.
translate the summary into Spanish.
Yeah, here you have the,
Nice.
I don't know if it is easy to read, but this is in
It
Spanish.
is
Yeah, and for example, I can select French and select the same event.
really cool. This is a great feature. This is a
Okay.
great feature because so many articles around the world obviously are in different languages. And if maybe somebody is not a native English speaker and would rather read the summary in a different language, with your app, they can do that.
Yes, actually, it's a basic implementation, but this is the goal, and it seems that provide quite good results. And then finally, the last page is what I call a conflict index. Yeah, I decide, given that we have many events from different countries, and for example, you made some consideration before by looking the map. When you have many attacks, and maybe you can have many deaths and less civilians involved, or vice versa. So I tried, in order to compare different countries, I put together the information from the dataset in order to create a kind of a KPI that I call the conflict index, that is a kind of simple synthetic indicator that take into consideration the attack rate, the overall death rate, and civilian death rate. And here I explain a little bit more about how I calculate this index. And the goal is to compare different countries. And here in this table, this is an AG grid dash component. I report the calculated conflict index sorted by in decreasing order, and
Yeah.
this provide, let's say, an information about the entity of the conflicts, if we have many attacks or many deaths and so on. But actually, for example, if you look at here, let's for example look Mexico and Myanmar. They have a quite similar index. Okay, so they are very intense conflicts. But by looking into these two pictures, here we have the two index, so for something for both country. But then I decide also to implement this plot that is a radar chart that can help to visualize the different components. For example, let me spend shortly to
Okay.
explain this plot. In this case, we are comparing the two selected countries, Mexico and Myanmar, and we have the dead civilians here, and here the death score, and the attack score. So the rate of the attacks, the rate of the overall deaths, and the rate of the overall rate of civilians death. And you can see that, for example, in Mexico, that is the orange one here, we have many attacks, but respect to the Myanmar, actually we have less civilian involved.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more involving the governative force, and
Yeah.
whereas Myanmar is a different situation. So similar index, but actually the conflicts have different characteristics.
Yeah.
And the goal of this page is exactly to highlight this characteristic and explore and get a better picture, more detailed picture about the conflicts from different countries. So these are, let's say, the main features that I implemented in this app.
Very
Visualization
interesting.
and something more.
Yeah. I really like it. It's a great opportunity to educate yourself on the different conflicts happening around the world. Because I especially like what you said, Laura. You usually hear of one or two conflicts in mainstream media, right? Usually
Yeah.
the most violent or the most highest death toll conflicts, but you don't hear of other conflicts that are happening in other parts of the world. And with your app, it's easy to discover them and learn more about them. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And Laura, thank you for coming on here and showcasing your app.
Thank you.